Now, obviously, we're all waiting for Travis Scott's new album, Utopia, and we've covered everything that was to cover there for this new album. It is now supposed to be coming out on June 23rd. That is only a theory, but I cover that in my latest video that's now also a while ago on this album. But today, I wanted to go over 3 main points that I hope to see and that I in some way expect to see Travis perform and execute on this new album. So let's take a look at those. If you want to stay up to date with all current hip-hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe and become part of this community. Oh, and also go cop that fresh merch and listen to my new songs in the description. Real quick, if you don't want to listen to this, make sure to skip 10 seconds into the future, but you can now sign up for my free newsletter with the first link in the description. It comes every Sunday and details everything that's been happening in hip-hop over the past week, so make sure to do that. Now, as I said, next month, June 23rd, is the supposed release date for Utopia, even though that is also only based on theories that are not confirmed by Travis directly, but that is the next best thing that we got because we have nothing on this album so far. Aside from obviously the Zouk nightclub performances where we got a couple of snippets that could tell us where this album is headed, but really there's not a lot. So I picked out 3 main things, 3 areas that I think Travis should focus on and that I expect to see Travis do and improve on this new album. So let's start with the first one. So the first one is the features. Now, features obviously always play a big role when it comes to a big album coming out because we're always hyped. Who's going to be on there? Who's going to, bring what skill or what ability that feature has to the table when it comes to the song? But I think in the past, Travis has always done a really good job when it came to features. Now, I'm not talking about him being featured on other people's tracks. I'm talking about him picking the people that he wants to have on his own record. Y'all remember Astroworld, the features were hidden, and that was a great way to kind of roll out the album. And y'all remember the Academics' reaction to Sicko Mode when he found out that Drake was on there, and that went for Astroworld on every track. It was really like a nice little mystery that you went through and you were like excited to see who's going to be on the next track because obviously it didn't tell you. Now, that is only the way he presented those features, but the way he used the features, I think Astroworld is also a great example. But I'm not only talking about the hip-hop artists, I'm not only talking about having Gunna and Sway Lee and Nav on your project, I'm talking about him utilizing, artists from other genres to add to his own style. And we know he's very much influenced by people like Tame Impala, for example, but he's also worked with people like, for example, I always love to give this example, Justin Bieber on Maria I'm Drunk together with Young Thug probably gave the best performance and feature of his life on that track, and that's only because Travis brought that out of him and he added to the track perfectly. While at first you're going into that song and you're like, what does a Justin Bieber feature have to do with this track? Like that's only going to be like a generic pop song or whatever. No, that song is a masterpiece, and I'm so happy that Justin was featured on there. Another example, Casey Hill on 90210, obviously delivering great female vocals on that track, but also, for example, Travis being featured on James Blake's album on Mile High. That feature is crazy, and that shows the versatility that also Travis can bring out when collaborating with other artists outside of hip-hop, outside maybe of his comfort zone. So that is the first thing, and I'm hoping we can see some more features that go further than just throw in a little Baby verse on a song. Nothing against Lil Baby, love the dude, but that's like a very generic way to do a feature, just a second verse and then you're done. I think Travis is someone that can focus on doing a feature and working together specifically for that song with the other artists, and that would greatly improve the quality of any album. Now, the second thing that I hope is pretty wide. It can cover a whole spectrum of things, but when I'm talking about the sound or the vibe of this album, I'm talking about the way that he packages the whole thing together, that it feels like one coherent, cohesive project. And I think he's delivered his own style very differently over the years. On Rodeo, we've had this maybe a little bit more rough sound to it with a lot of still distortion, clipping going on in some sounds, and it felt really rough but very artistic in the same way. But then on Astroworld, it was a more mellow vibe, a little bit more perfected, a little bit more psychedelic. And I think, Birds in the Trap being somewhere in the middle of those, and we've had him go way harder on, Al Pharaoh or Days Before Rodeo, where he was really, going in on a very hard sound, harder drums than Astroworld, for example. Astroworld did have its hard-hitting banger moments, but it was a more mellow psychedelic vibe overall. And I think he can't further drift into that psychedelic wave, because then it'll end like Don Toliver Lovesick, where it basically becomes like a psychedelic R&B album. Love that album, by the way, but I don't think that is where Travis is headed. I think he'll somehow find a middle ground again, maybe revert a little bit back from that psychedelic sound that we had on Astroworld, maybe go a little more in the rodeo direction, but obviously we want him to do a whole different sound. We want him to have some more, as he said himself, rock influence. As I mentioned Tame Impala earlier, that would definitely be something that I would love to see on Utopia. Now, when it comes to the concept for Utopia, he's really given himself a really easy layup for this one, because we've been talking about Utopia, Dystopia for the longest time. At first, we thought that Dystopia was going to be a mixtape or another album that was going to drop before the big album Utopia, and that he could have conceptually combined them so well, because obviously you have a Utopia that's like the happy, perfect world where nothing is flawed, and you can have some, soundtrack to that. And then Dystopia is maybe the harsh reality, a little bit more hard-hitting tracks on there that kind of face reality a little bit more. So he could very well play on that theme. And now, you don't think that he named the thing Utopia for a reason. I think it's going to have somewhat more of a Bride vibe to it. It's not going to be Birds in the Trap where it's a little bit darker. I think that's just the name Utopia already kind of, takes that away and takes that ahead of its release. But still, I think if he could still pull this off, do some sort of concept throughout the entire album that plays into the theme of Utopia, maybe also like an anti-theme against Dystopia. I mean, we did get the EP, the Dystopia EP with Mafia and Estate Plan. Maybe kind of like a counterpart to that, or at least somehow reference it. I think that would, probably provide the album with some great variety and some great addition to it. Now, those are my three things that I'm hoping for mainly on this new album. Obviously, those are pretty broad feather. They're very on a big spectrum of things that he could then execute them very differently, but it's definitely something that I've been thinking about, and I've been kind of like, wondering, what do I even expect from this album? We shouldn't let our expectations ruin the experience for us. Obviously, that is always something that I kind of preach, and we shouldn't let, our imagination of what the album should be like ruin the actual experience itself. But it's always interesting to talk about things and what we want the artist to do on the album, and then kind of go into it with a little bit more hype. So let me know what your 3 or even more points or expectations, hopes are for Travis's new album Utopia, because I definitely think that we can have a great discussion about this. So let me know all your thoughts on this in the comments down below. If you watched this video to the end and liked it, and you want to stay up to date with all current hip-hop events and releases, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, hit that like button, and go follow my social media, and most importantly, join my Discord in the description. Until the next one, you'll have an incredible day, and you'll take care.